Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we take some really challenging source material articles, research, or, in today's case, a brilliant collection of fiction, and we just break it down.
We break it down until you're not just informed, but you're equipped with these layered insights that, they really stick with you.
Exactly. Think of this as your shortcut to being instantly well-read on one of modern literature's most, I guess, unsettling psychological experiments.
That's a great way to put it. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the aftermath, but not the physical aftermath. We're looking at the massive psychological and, I'd say, existential shock that's explored in Haruki Murakami's short story collection, After the Quake.
That's right. So our mission today is to treat these fictional narratives almost like factual case studies. We're going to analyze the internal seismic shifts that happen in the minds of people who were forced by this huge catastrophic event.
The 1995 Kobe earthquake.
Right, the Kobe earthquake, to confront their deepest, most repressed anxieties. And what's so fascinating is that almost none of the main characters were physically harmed.
Or even physically present.
Not at all. They were miles away.
And that geographical and emotional distance, that's really the core premise we're unpacking today. The collection, it centers on characters who are, leading these stable, successful lives.
Seemingly successful.
Seemingly, yes. But they're ultimately unexamined lives. They're in Tokyo or Bangkok. And when the news of the devastation hits, it just acts as this powerful external trigger. It rips away the superficial reality they had built up around themselves.
And it forces them to confront this emptiness, these unresolved feelings, and the deeply surreal parts of their own suppressed selves.
Exactly. Murakami uses the actual geological event to seismically shift the internal landscape of his characters. It's brilliant.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. We've got sources focusing on three main threads today. First, we're going to look at the paradox of the paralysis of distance.
Yeah.
How being far away can actually make the internal crisis, well, worse.
Then second, we'll look at characters who are actively confronting their inner vacuum. They're searching for some kind of substance, some purpose.
And finally, we get into the really strange stuff, the surreal battles. We're talking frogs, spirit healers, these interventions that try to restore internal balance when, rational life just completely fails.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary study in how you find meaning when the ground beneath you literally liquefies, or maybe more terrifyingly, when you realize the foundation of your entire life was just a chunk of air.
Let's jump right into that paralysis of distance. We have to start with Kimura in UFO in Kushiro. The story begins with a shock, but it has nothing to do with falling buildings.
Precisely. Kimura is just this ordinary salesman in Tokyo. He's completely safe, miles and miles from Kobe, but the story opens with his wife's reaction to the tragedy, and it's bizarre.
It's not geological at all.
Not at all. She spends 5 straight days just glued to the TV news, watching the devastation, the crumpled banks, the severed rail lines, the fires.
And she's not eating, not drinking, not speaking, just watching.
Hypnotized by the chaos, he goes off to his normal routine job. He comes home and she's still there, just static, absorbing all that destruction.
And then on the 6th day, the real earthquake hits Kimura's life.
She's gone.
Just gone. She's empty. The apartment of all her belongings, clothes, shoes, even the CDs he collected before they even met. Almost nothing of hers is left behind.
And she leaves that note, that absolutely critical, chilling note.
The note is everything.
It is. It's the diagnosis of Kimura's entire internal state. She tells him she's leaving because he never gives her anything. That he has, and this is the quote, nothing inside him.
Like living with a chunk of air.
Exactly, like living with a chunk of air. That accusation of being this empty, floating void, that is the true internal catastrophe for him.
I mean, let's look at him on paper. Our notes describe him as tall, slim, stylish, earning a good income. He was sexually faithful. He liked coming home early for a relaxed meal. He was the definition of fine.
He was stable.
He was stable. So why would this guy be described as a chunk of air?
Because he was perfectly adapted to a functional, completely unexamined life. His stability was actually a form of repression. His wife, she found comfort in his reliability at first. She was the one who disliked Tokyo and often traveled back home. But stability and substance are clearly not the same thing.
Right.
So that external chaos in Kobe, which she watched so obsessively, it must have just exposed the absolute vacuum at the center of their marriage. The disaster gave her the permission, or maybe the psychological necessity, to abandon a life she found utterly void of meaning.
So his wife's departure becomes this proxy disaster for him. But this is where his passivity really, really kicks in. He takes a week's leave from work, but he doesn't go look for her.
He doesn't even really seem to introspect. He just sort of exists in this new vacuum.
Yeah. And he passively accepts this bizarre request from his colleague, Sasaki.
And this journey is just classic Murakami. It's this beautiful, functional absurdity. He's asked to hand-deliver a mysterious, lightweight wooden box.
Wrapped like it contains human ashes.
Exactly. Up to Kushiro, Hokkaido. He's told to stand outside the airport gate holding the package so Sasaki's sister, Kaiko, can recognize him. And Kimura just accepts this. There's zero resistance, zero intellectual curiosity. It's a task that just screams ritual and symbolic passage, and he just does it.
The fact that he agrees to transport what looks like cremated remains across the country for a colleague he barely knows just because his wife left him. It says so much about his psychological state.
He's in stasis.
Yes. He needs a mission, no matter how pointless, just to fill the void.
That's a fascinating way to put it. He's performing a spiritual task to substitute for genuine emotional action. And the ritual is immediately broken, which just emphasizes how meaningless the outer action is.
Right. He fails to hold the box like he was told. He puts it in a suitcase. But they still find him.
They find him anyway. And the confusion just deepens when Kaiko mistakenly believes Kimura's wife is dead.
That confusion is so important. Kaiko thinking his wife is dead when she's really just gone. It highlights how pervasive the feeling of loss and disappearance is after the quake. It just blurs the lines between physical death and psychological void.
Exactly. But the real devastating insight comes from Kaiko's friend, Shimao. After Kimura admits he still feels lost and can't get away from himself, Shimao offers this metaphysical explanation for the weightless box.
This is the critical juncture of the story.
It is. Shimao suggests that the box contains the something that was inside you, his internal substance, his soul, maybe his capacity for genuine feeling.
And that he unknowingly gave it away.
Unknowingly gave it away and can never get it back. The weightless box symbolizes the unbearable weight of his absent self.
The implication is terrifying. He wasn't born a chunk of air.
Yeah.
He slowly lost the contents of his soul through years of just mechanical, unexamined living.
And when he delivers the box, he's completing the transaction. He's finalizing the removal of his own self.
But if he's lost his soul, why does the realization provoke him to the verge of overwhelming violence? Not grief, not introspection, but violence. Isn't that an incredibly aggressive response for such a passive, controlled man?
That raises such a crucial point about the structure of his internal earthquake. Violence, in this context, is the first real feeling he's had in years.
It's a sign of life.
It's an aggressive attempt to reclaim agency. The recognition that he is an empty vessel, a chunk of air, triggers this furious eruption of the self, desperately trying to deny that irreversible loss. He feels like he's come a very long way, finally breaking the psychological stasis of Tokyo, and that violence is the cost of breaking free.
So he goes from passive acceptance to this furious existential rebellion in a single moment.
Yes, the numbness is gone.
Okay, so Kimura is cold and numb, defined by this passive journey. Now, let's flip that idea on its head and look at Satsuki's very fiery internal state in the story Thailand.
The contrast is striking, and I think it's intentional. Satsuki is a thyroid pathologist. She's physically distant in Bangkok for a conference, but she is suffering physically. She's having hot flashes.
And the source material explicitly links her menopausal physical state to her inner turmoil. She is literally burning up from the inside.
And what's fueling that heat? It's this intense, long-held desire for destruction. It's aimed at her ex-lover who lives in Kobe.
And she's not just passively resentful. She actively wishes he had been crushed to death by something big and heavy or swallowed up by the liquefied earth. The external disaster, which brought death to thousands, becomes a vehicle for her very private, decades-old hatred.
So while Kimura experienced this psychic distance, Satsuki experiences emotional heat. It proves that the physical distance offers no safety at all from these internal psychological forces. She's trying to use the earthquake to solve her personal problems.
Her guide in Bangkok is Nimit, a slim Thai man driving this old, beautiful Mercedes. And his backstory is so typically Murakami.
It really is. He speaks with a strange Norwegian English he picked up from his former employer, a gem dealer from Lapland, a place of extreme cold.
The contrast again?
Exactly. Nimit's background serves as a perfect metaphor for Satsuki's displacement. He lived for 33 years as another man's shadow. He did everything his employer wanted, a physical life in the shadows, and in the process, he lost track of what he truly wanted.
So he understands the emotional consequence of leading a secondary, defined existence.
Mhm.
He can connect with Satsuki's long repressed emotional baggage.
And he eventually takes Satsuki to an old village woman who treats people's spirits. And this is where Satsuki's internal burning hatred is externalized into a tangible object.
Right. The healer tells Satsuki she has a hard white stone inside her.
Inscribed with Japanese characters. And it has to be removed before she dies, or, the healer says, only the stone will remain after her cremation.
What a brilliant metaphor for crystallized, internalized resentment. Her hatred has literally calcified inside her. She's a pathologist. She's trained to analyze the physical reality of the body, yet her deepest ailment is this spiritual object.
And the fact that it's inscribed with Japanese characters links it specifically to her cultural and linguistic history. It's the very words she used to articulate her pain.
And that diagnosis is followed by this double truth.
Mm.
First, the man she hated survived the quake without a scratch.
Which frustrates her destructive desire and forces her to hold on to the hatred, which is now completely useless. It has no outlet.
And second, the cure requires this visceral, non-rational intervention.
Yes, she's told to have a dream where a green, scaly snake will emerge from a wall, and she must grab it and hold on to it until she wakes up so it can swallow the stone.
The snake, a universal symbol of renewal, transformation, subconscious energy. It's required to literally consume the physical manifestation of her pain.
It demands a total surrender to dream logic and her irrational self, which is the complete opposite of her training as a scientific pathologist.
And Nimick gives her what might be the most profound instruction in the whole book. He advises her not to put her pain into words.
Because words turn into stone.
That brings us right back to the inscription on the stone.
The language used to articulate deep pain or hatred, the very words used to form her destructive desire, are what solidify the stone inside her. If she speaks the secret she's held onto about her father's death and her mother selling his things, she risks hardening the stone even more, making the spiritual cure impossible.
So it connects her private pain back to the greater geological trauma. Words, which are supposed to connect, they become rigid, silent structures, like the concrete that was destroyed in the quake.
So Satsuki has to abandon rational explanation and allow the irrational, visceral dream logic to heal her. It requires this extreme internal discipline, as Nimitz tells her later. Cast off mere words.
What a contrast to Kimura, who needed the violence of a word air to initiate any change at all.
If Kimura and Satsuki were dealing with the exposed emptiness triggered by the quake, the next characters we're looking at, they actively confront that vacuum. They're searching for substance, for some kind of definition. Let's start with Miyake in Landscape with Flatiron.
Miyake, the painter. He has physically fled Kobe for Ibaraki, but his psychological state is completely anchored to the disaster he left behind. He lives this deeply ritualistic life, dedicated to collecting driftwood and compulsively building these massive free bonfires on the beach.
And he describes these fires as necessary to reflect the deep feelings inside the viewer. The fire is his temporary controlled chaos. It's an external display of passion against the inner, cold dread he feels.
He calls himself the Idiot King.
Right, because he still has a family in the Higashinada section of Kobe, one of the worst-hit areas, but he refuses to check on them or even acknowledge their existence. His separation is voluntary and absolute. He's a king ruling over a kingdom of nothingness.
And his self-imposed isolation, his dread, it's rooted in this terrifying, recurring premonition he has. He believes he will die slowly, suffocating inside a discarded, pitch-black refrigerator grabbed by dead people's hands.
This dream has haunted him for years. It's an image of profound, cold, claustrophobic despair. It's the complete opposite of the warm, free, open fire he creates on the beach.
So the fire is this desperate, momentary act of freedom against the suffocating fate that's promised by the refrigerator.
And yet he builds the fire with the precise care of a sculptor. It's an art form. And that brings us to the symbolic object of the story. His newest painting, Landscape with Flatiron. He says it's a picture of an iron in a room, but he insists it's not really an iron.
Okay, this is a dense piece of symbolism that we need to unpack. Why a flat iron?
Well, flatiron represents pressure, right? Smoothing out wrinkles, applying intense heat and weight to impose form on something chaotic. It stands for the unpaintable, unstated truth of Miyake's life. The intense controlled pressure he is under to repress his fate, his family, his feelings.
So he uses the fire to momentarily escape the cold pressure of that internalized flat iron, which stands in for the difficult emotional reality he can't look at directly.
It's the weight of the life he ironed flat. And that's what attracts Junko, a young woman who's run away from home and feels completely empty.
And Miyake, the man living in fear of this slow, cold death, he validates her feeling of emptiness. He instantly connects with her. He says, I know what you mean. I'm an expert.
This shared nihilism just bonds them instantly. They find this temporary relief in the mutual recognition of their brokenness, warmed by the free fire on the beach.
But the segment ends with Junko proposing they die together once the bonfire burns out, just delaying the inevitable coldness.
Their connection isn't love, it's mutual despair. It's a temporary stay against existential oblivion. Junko notes his arm is strangely bony, and she instantly realizes she could never truly live with him or connect with his heart.
But she concludes, but I might be able to die with him.
The fire is a countdown to the final pitch-dark moment, and Miyake just calmly promises to think up a method. This is where that search for substance just turns into the pursuit of annihilation.
So if Miyake finds only temporary warmth in his fire, where does Yoshia turn to find a sense of permanent rhythm or connection? We move to All God's Children Can Dance, which deals not with emptiness, but with these complex, conflicting narratives surrounding his very existence.
Yoshi's identity is rooted in the bizarre dogma of his mother's faith. She was a volunteer servant of God who claimed Yoshi's father was our Lord.
Because she became pregnant 3 times despite using foolproof contraception. And then number 3 was seen as a divine revelation, so he is literally the divine son.
But Yoshia rejected that faith in middle school. He knows the biological truth. His father is an obstetrician his mother slept with, a man who had a missing right earlobe, bitten off by a dog.
And the doctor denied paternity, citing his own reproachless contraceptive methods, so he basically sided with the divine narrative over the biological one.
It's this struggle between the sacred dogma that gave his life a grand, if ridiculous, narrative, and the profane, earthy biological truth that makes him just a normal, flawed person.
Yeah.
And the Kobe earthquake, happening right in the midst of this internal conflict, it pushes him to chase the literal, earthly truth he needs to define himself.
He starts the chase while he's overcome by a severe hangover, a visceral, disgusting reminder of his current flawed existence. And he tails a man with a missing right earlobe, a man who matches the description and age through the Tokyo subway system.
He is literally following a repressed physical detail, the missing earlobe, which symbolizes the imperfection and chaos inherent in human life rather than the perfection of the divine narrative. The chase is ritualistic, it's relentless.
And the pursuit leads to this deserted, concrete-walled area, ending abruptly at a baseball field. The man vanishes in the darkness of the outfield. The hard, concrete, functional world of Tokyo just dissolves into the ambiguous, empty space of the field.
That vanishing act is the key. It forces Yoshia to stop chasing external answers. He realizes the chase wasn't just about the man, it was about following the tail of the darkness inside me.
The darkness is his lack of certainty.
His unresolved identity, and the lingering shadow of the faith he rejected. The vanishing man forces him to confront the self he brought with him to the chase.
So standing alone on the pitcher's mound, he begins to dance all by himself, a habit he learned from an ex-girlfriend who called him Super Frog.
And as he dances, his rhythm connects with the ebb and flow of the tide, the dancing of the wind across the plains. He feels certain that all God's children can dance.
The dance is his breakthrough, a pure, unmediated physical expression of connection to the world. And it's divorced from dogma, from logic, even from his hangover.
He realizes that the core rhythm of life is inherent. It's available to everyone, whether their father is divine or a fallible obstetrician. It is the spontaneous connection to the earth's natural, ancient pulse.
And as he dances, he connects this rhythm to what lies under the earth, the ominous rumbling of the deepest darkness, the lair of earthquakes, these creatures that help create the rhythm of the earth.
And that's the profound link back to the Quake. The existential chaos isn't just human, it's subterranean and seismic. It's a rhythm of creation and destruction. The darkness inside him is connected to the darkness under the earth, the potential for catastrophic upheaval, and by embracing this rhythmic chaos, he achieves acceptance. He can finally stop chasing the missing father.
And to anchor this in human failing, he remembers his deceased guide, Mr. Tabata, who confessed on his deathbed to having had lustful thoughts toward Yoshia's mother.
And having to suppress violent cravings for her flesh.
Right.
That confession just underscores the universality of the human struggle. The divine origin story was predicated on his mother's purity, which was fiercely protected by Mr. Tabata. Yet, Tabata's dying words show that the struggle between faith, desire, and human connection is fundamental to everyone.
He realizes that hearts aren't stones, like Satsuki's. They never disintegrate entirely. Whether good or evil, human feelings can always be communicated.
Okay, now we move into the truly surreal, where the search for internal substance becomes an outright war waged by a talking amphibian.
Battling the ultimate catastrophe, the unseen war, starting with Super Frog Saves Tokyo.
Yeah.
We are talking about a 6-foot frog who runs a secret military operation beneath a bank lobby. We have to just pause and appreciate the sheer commitment to absurdity required for this spiritual fight.
Absolutely. Murakami takes the existential confrontation and just projects it onto a cosmic scale. Our protagonist is Katagiri, a 40-year-old, bald, portly, lonely, and completely unappreciated assistant chief of the Trust Bank Lending Division.
A debt collector.
A debt collector known as a tough guy for his lack of fear in dangerous situations. So he's internally brave, but externally completely invisible.
And the unlikely hero is Frog, over 6 feet tall, who appears in Katagiri's apartment. And Frog insists he is not a metaphor or an illusion.
But a real frog who claims to be the sum total of all frogs.
Right, and he has come to save Tokyo from a massive earthquake scheduled for 8:30 a.m. on February 18th, set to strike directly beneath the Shinjuku branch of Katagiri's bank.
And the estimated death toll is terrifyingly specific. Over 150,000 people, mostly from commuter system accidents.
And the source of this impending disaster is Worm.
A gigantic, angry underground creature as big as a commuter train whose brain is turned to jelly and who stores hatred that manifests as seismic rage.
And the recent Kobe quake woke Worm up and inspired him to cause another catastrophic quake in Tokyo.
So we have this really clear alignment. Worm is seismic hatred. Frog is the sum total of all natural innocence and courage. But here's the bizarre twist. Frog, the pacifist who loves art and nature, he doesn't need Katagiri's physical strength.
Yeah.
He needs his courage, his passion for justice, and his moral support.
He needs him to stand behind him and cheer him on.
Yes, to say, way to go, Frog, you're doing great.
Wait, so the fate of Tokyo rests on one invisible man's moral cheerleading. If the battle is physical, why does a giant frog need a debt collector's internal moral fiber?
Because Frog sees what others can't. He respects Katagiri's hidden moral integrity, his silent sacrifice in raising his siblings, his unwavering commitment to an unpopular job despite being overlooked and unappreciated by everyone. Frog suggests that Worm's hatred feeds on the city's collective despair and indifference.
So Katagiri's silent moral substance acts as the necessary counterforce,
Yeah.
the spiritual fuel for the fight.
Precisely. And to prove he's real, Frog instantly solves Katagiri's most difficult, seemingly impossible case, the 700 million yen Big Bear loan, using only a touch of psychological terror on the mobsters. He proves that he can manipulate reality to achieve justice, validating his existence outside of Katagiri's imagination.
But the battle is set for the night of February 17th beneath the bank, and Katagiri fails to make the rendezvous. He's shot, or he hallucinates being shot on his way back. He wakes up in the hospital the next morning after 9:15 a.m., and discovers the earthquake did not happen.
The initial confusion is profound. The doctors say he wasn't shot, he was just found lying in the street, unconscious. The nurse confirms there was no earthquake, so it forces the question. Was Frog even real?
Did Katagiri's mind, just overwhelmed by the responsibility Frog placed on him, finally break? I mean, the nurse even heard him yelling, "Frog! Hey, Frog!" in his sleep.
The answer arrives that night when Frog appears in his hospital room, grievously wounded. His body is covered in deep cuts and discolored streaks, and Frog credits Katagiri's courage in his dreams for the victory.
And this is where the narrative shifts fully, and I think dangerously, to the realm of the imagination as the true battlefield. Frog clarifies that the battle occurred in the area of imagination, where we experience our victories and our defeats.
This is such a critical philosophical move. If the battle only happened in the area of imagination, how does that translate into tangible salvation for Tokyo? Is Frog suggesting that our collective internal moral health dictates geological reality? Maybe. But more importantly, the victory wasn't total. Frog clarifies it was a draw with Worm. He emphasizes that the ultimate value of their lives is decided not by how they win, but by how they lose, how profoundly they commit to the fight, even if the battle is completely subjective.
Frog is clearly dying. He's slowly returning to the mud. And he strains to communicate this identity crisis he's having, stating, "I am indeed pure frog, but at the same time I am a thing that stands for a world of unfrog."
The unmeat inside him. That's the darkness he had to fight. The hatred and repressed suffering of the collective unconscious, which is symbolized by Worm. He's suggesting the battle was internal as much as it was external. He emphasizes that what you see with your eyes is not necessarily real.
So the physical non-occurrence of the quake is irrelevant. The moral, internal victory over seismic rage is what actually matters.
But the final horrific dissolution of Frog is one of the most unsettling images in the entire collection. It was really underdeveloped in our previous analysis.
We need to spend some significant time here. This is the moment where the abstract battle becomes violently physical and psychological.
Yes, Frog's body twitches, these huge boils erupt, and they burst open with a foul smell, and they're immediately replaced by wriggling worms, maggots, and centipede-like creatures.
It's the dissolution of the pure frog back into the subterranean muck of worm. It's the physical manifestation of worm's hatred attempting to consume the victor. And it is visible only to Katagiri.
And these creatures don't just cover the room, they physically invade Katagiri's body. They crawl into his anus, his ears, his nostrils, his mouth. It is the ultimate psychological violation. It's the physical embodiment of the darkness and rot he helped to fight, attempting to take him over completely.
Replacing the moral substance that fueled the victory. It is the un-me trying to colonize his inner world.
So is this a genuine spiritual attack, or is this the moment Katagiri's mind, overwhelmed by the responsibility and the extreme physical trauma of his unconsciousness, just finally broke?
And that's the beautiful ambiguity of Murakami. The invasion is subjective, but the feeling of being invaded is profoundly real. He is experiencing the price of fighting the ultimate unseen battle.
He helped save the city from Worm, and now Worm's remnants are trying to take his soul. He's fighting the aftermath of the imagination.
And then the nurse flips the switch, the light fills the room, and the bugs are gone.
The experience is subjective, a nightmare brought on by a terrible night. Katagiri sinks into this restful, dreamless sleep knowing he saved Tokyo from being destroyed by an earthquake, all by himself. The inner reality provides the true salvation, but at a horrifying psychological cost.
Oh, we end our dive with Honey Pie, which it offers a form of narrative repair. It contrasts so sharply with the bleak conclusions of Miyake and the violent surrealism of Katagiri.
This story centers on Junpei, a short story writer, whose passive love for his best friend Takatsuki's ex-wife Sayoko, it really mirrors his general passivity in life.
Junpei is the eternal observer. He loves Sayoko, but he's consistently reactive, always defined by Takatsuki's actions.
Right, Takatsuki marries Sayoko, he divorces her, and then he encourages Junpei to step in as a father figure to his daughter Sala. Junpei never initiates anything, he just waits for permission.
And his creative life mirrors this passivity. He's the eternally promising candidate for literary prizes, writing these well-written, lyrical, but kind of dark and sentimental short stories. He finds it impossible to start a novel.
Lacking the sustained concentration, it suggests his personality is suited only for these short bursts of total effort, just like his passive love life.
However, he finds his true purpose in telling Sala these original bedtime stories. This is where he exercises his imagination and his agency, but it's still within a confined, non-committal role. He tells her about Masakichi the bear, who can talk and count money and listen to Schubert, but is shunned by others because he's too special.
And the crisis arrives with Sala's trauma after the earthquake. She's having these nightly hysterical fits, claiming the earthquake man, who's tall, skinny, and old, woke her up and is trying to stuff her into a little box way too little for anyone to fit into.
That little box is such an explicit manifestation of the horror and compression brought on by the disaster. It's the existential fear of being contained, trapped, and obliterated. It's the same claustrophobia Miyake feared in his refrigerator dream.
This figure threatens to reduce human life, which is so vast and complex, to this small, suffocating container.
And this shared trauma interrupts the one moment Junpei finally acts. After years of inertia, he and Sayoko are having sex, seeming to confirm the shift that Takatsuki predicted.
But the personal moment of connection is violently interrupted by the universal existential threat. Sayo walks in and delivers the earthquake man's chilling message.
He said he has the box ready for everybody. He said he's waiting with the lid open.
The trauma just exposes the fragility of their newly formed intimacy. It's terrifying.
And this interruption forces agency. Lying awake on the sofa, clutching Sayoko's discarded bra, an anonymous witness to his passive life, Junpei finally confronts his inertia. He decides to ask Sayoko to marry him. Immediately.
This decision is his first true, unprompted act of agency. He is choosing commitment, stability, and future action over observation and reaction. And it's followed by this critical creative realization. He has to change the ending of the bear story, the story that reflects his own life.
In the original ending, the tough bear, Tonkichi leaves Masakichi and gets caught and sent to the zoo. It's a dark conclusion that mirrors Junpei's own sense of being trapped. But in the revised ending, Tonkichi, having lost his salmon-catching talent, discovers a talent for baking honey pies.
Honey pies. Why honey pies? They symbolize comfort, creation, shared effort. The new narrative emphasizes collaboration, shared talents, and a positive future based on acceptance and creation, not solitude or loss. He is literally writing a new narrative for his own life and for the family he now wants to protect.
And the final commitment is an active defiance of the Quake's legacy and the Earthquake Man's threat. Junpei commits to writing stories about people who dream and wait for the night to end, who long for the light so they can hold the ones they love.
He is shifting from writer as passive observer to writer as active protector. He vows to watch over Sayoko and Sala, never letting anyone put them into that crazy box, not even if the sky should fall or the earth crack open with a roar. The internal decision to commit is his act of stabilizing the earth.
So when we synthesize these stories, the message seems pretty clear. The earthquake isn't just a geological event. It's a catalyst that rips away superficial reality, forcing characters like Kimura, Satsuki, Miyake, and Yoshia to confront their inner emptiness, their unhealed psychological wounds.
It's the price of a stable, unexamined life.
Yeah. Kimura was a choke of air. Satsuki carried a calcified stone of hatred, the words of her pain just hardening against her heart. Miyake lived in fear of cold, suffocating darkness, symbolized by the refrigerator and the flat iron's pressure.
The external shock forces them to admit what they're lacking or what they've been avoiding.
And their salvation, or at least their survival, depends on these deeply unconventional, often bizarre acts of discipline, imagination, and acceptance. Satsuki has to submit to the visceral dream logic of the snake.
Yoshia has to find rhythm through spontaneous dance atop the layer of earthquakes. Katagiri and Frog have to fight Worm in the subjective area of imagination.
This distinction between inner and outer reality is where we find the deepest questions, I think. Frog tells Katagiri, what you see with your eyes is not necessarily real, suggesting that the true value of life is found in these internal, unrecognized battles, the moral victories over the worms, and the internal chaos.
And this brings us back to the ultimate questions posed by the surreal guides in the stories. Nimit advises Satsuki that living and dying are, in a sense, of equal value, and then he relays his Norwegian employer's agonizing question about the solitary polar bears. Then what do we exist for?
It's an open-ended question that the book reframes rather than answers. Perhaps existence is defined by the effort to overcome that internal void. Junpei finds existence in creating a happy ending for others and watching over the ones he loves.
And Katagi finds his existence in an unseen moral victory over seismic rage, even if the battle left him psychologically scarred by the lingering presence of Worm.
What stands out to me is this idea that whether you choose discipline over desire or imagination over rigid reality, the core effort is what defines the self. If the earth beneath your feet is fundamentally mushy and unstable, if everything can be swept away in an instant, then the only thing that remains is the integrity of the inner struggle.
The true value, as Frog concluded, is found not in victory, but in how profoundly you commit to that fight against the unme.
The great paradox here is that the physical disaster forces these ordinary people to become heroes of the subjective realm.
They have to go beyond the rational self to save the soul they didn't even know they had lost.
So what does this all mean for you? If the world you inhabit is constantly shifting, and the solidity you rely on is merely an illusion, what are the invisible battles you are currently fighting in the area of imagination that are defining your existence? And what story are you writing for yourself about the night ending? Something to consider as you step back out into the world.